I know I'm not the only one that has lost and or won due to a floodgate, but I feel like floodgates are necessary evil. Simply because in every card game there needs to be some way, somehow to stop everything. That does not mean that these said cards are going to be used in decks. It just depends on the meta and stuff. For instance, you see Skill Drain, Vanity's Emptiness more than the other things. Skill Drain primarily in Cleaforts and maybe Yang Zing if you still play that. But you see Vanity's Emptiness, I would say virtually everywhere if you was going to a competitive event. Now, it may suck. I don't necessarily agree with Skill Drain at 3, or Vanity's Emptiness for that matter, but they are necessary evils. Typically, Floodgates would be played in the side deck. Not necessarily sure I like Floodgates like Skill Drain and Vanity's Emptiness being played in the same deck, in the main deck. Having inherent answers to just decks in general in the main deck is not cool. But on the other hand, it is nice to have the option. There are ways to stop basically everything, but you have to hedge the odds on which things are worth stopping. Think about it like this. If Soul Drain was not at 1 in the TCG, Burning Abyss would still be the deck that it is. It would just mean that you'd have the ability to play Soul Drain and or Shadow Imprisoning Mirror against it. Same thing kind of with Shadows and such. That was an example of them managing the floodgate number. But then there's Skill Drain and Vanity's Emptiness. I don't think these cards are bad. I just think that it's a little bit too much where a deck can play both of them in the main deck and possibly play 3 of each. No other deck can do that. Cleaforce just function normally. The mechanic of pendulums allows Vanity's Emptiness to stay out more often than if he was playing Emptiness in Shaddolls, playing it in Burning Abyss, and so on. What would you rather have? Would you rather have a game that this is and not have any sort of way to stop your opponent from doing a lot of whatever it is, a lot of searching, a lot of on-field effects, graveyard-based effects? Would you like to have that and not have any way to combat that? Because yes, if a floodgate stays on the field and you do not have the space for said floodgate that ruins your deck, then yes, you lose. But if you have the way to get rid of the floodgate, you can just continue to do what it is that you're doing. But I feel like when people complain about floodgates, you need to understand in the grand scheme here, floodgates are necessary because people want to have some sort of way to just prevent something from happening. There has to be a preventative measure. Even if that preventative measure is stopped by a spell and trap removal card like Heavy Storm or Mystical Space Typhoon or even Fairy Wind, Spell Shattering Arrow, whatever. There has to be some way to stop your opponent if your opponent does not have a way to stop or get rid of said floodgate card with Cleaforts, meaning 2 floodgates. I think that's some BS. I think at that point, a line should be drawn. It's too much. It'd be nice if they did something about skill drain. And I say skill drain because that's just universally stomping on everybody's decks that aren't Cleaforts and Burning Abyss to an extent. Now, I'm not even saying that if said floodgate is out, you can't win the game. But a deck has a certain goal in mind. It has a gimmick. It has some form of unfair play that attracts people to play said decks. And when you have floodgates that stop that, and because of said unfair deck doing said unfair things, people would more likely complain if there were no floodgates around about the unfair plays. So that's where floodgates make things honest. If your opponent does not have a way to get rid of said floodgate, they have to play the game in its most primitive form, which is setting spell traps, activating spell traps, summoning, setting monsters, attacking your opponent. The floodgates don't stop you from playing the game. It stops you from doing the unfair things that these decks nowadays allow you to do if said floodgate is not available. So again, floodgates are important. They are sadly a necessary evil, but there could be some way to prevent it from just being overbearing. Side note, Mistake ain't being played yet, but it might be. Think about how much search Necros have at their disposal. Manju and or Senju, more than likely Manju, Preparation of Rites, Clausulus, Brio, then there's that Shrit thing, and then there's other ones, but that's a lot of cards. That search in the main deck. If a mistake stays out and the Necros player can't really do anything about it, they didn't draw the Mystical Space Typhoon or some way to get rid of it, then sure, they can still play the game. It just won't be as simple as sculpting your perfect hand. But I'm going to just leave it at that. I'd like to thank each and everybody for watching. Appreciate that. But then again, I think I gave you some pretty good material. So I think it evens it out. Before you go, I'd like to also ask you to click an advertisement because it is the fastest and the cheapest way to help me out because it takes no money out your pocket. It takes literally seconds out your day. I'll be grateful and happy if you're finding yourself to do that because you are really helping a young educated black man like myself pay rent to live in this place I currently reside. And if floodgates bother you so much, play a deck that isn't hurt by them. Or play something like Harpy that just says, I don't care about any of your traps. Blow it up, 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 blow it up. It's not difficult stuff.